long lineups at this drop-in clinic for COVID-19 vaccines in Coquitlam Tuesday, as Fraser Health offers shots to a wider range of people. Just ahead why many people in their 30s got a jab today.
Yeah, completely shocked. It came up this morning. We got the notice there was this pop-up vaccination clinic, and it came right away.
A BC doctor telling bosses to stop giving workers who need time off for COVID a hard time.
You will have stopped transmission in its tracks by allowing your employee to go home without having to jump through a gazillion hoops.
You're a disgusting human being.
It's the latest confrontation over mask wearing, and Frontline workers say customers frustrated with the pandemic have become commonplace.
They aren't making public health orders, but sometimes they end up wearing some of those decisions.
Daily case counts for COVID-19 continue to slowly trend down. Over the last day, there have been 799 new cases. No one has died. There are 500 people in hospital, and of those, 164 are in the ICU. Today's update comes as the province extends the state of emergency by another 2 weeks.
Feels like it's the beginning of the end.
Hundreds, if not thousands, of people flocked to 3 COVID-19 drop-in clinics in the Fraser Health region Tuesday afternoon. No appointment was necessary. People lined up for hours outside the Poirier Forum in Coquitlam and the Cloverdale Recreation Centre, which were offering the AstraZeneca vaccine to people 30 and older who live in the 10 high-transmission neighbourhoods in the Fraser Health region. Another clinic in Surrey offered the shot to those 40 and older also living in high-transmission neighbourhoods.
I had COVID and I had long haul symptoms, and I'm just really happy that I don't ever have to go through that again, because it was awful. It was terrible.
Many people in this massive lineup here at the Poirier Forum drop-in clinic are in the 30-plus age range, and were surprised people in their age group could get a vaccine today.
Yeah, completely shocked. It came up this morning. We got the notice there was this pop-up vaccination clinic, and it came right away.
I heard from a client this morning. I was doing her hair, and she told me her husband came down this morning, and I thought it was fake, and sent a friend down, and she got it, so here I am.
When word spread that doses were being offered to people in their 30s, many rushed to the Coquitlam clinic. Those at the back of the line around 2 p.m. were told the wait could be upwards of 4 hours, but were still willing to stay put.
If I knew it was coming, I would have been here earlier, but I got here as quick as I can, and I'm happy to be here.
I go to the dentist for my teeth. I listen to the epidemiologist for the epidemiology.
The move to vaccinate people in their 30s comes after the National Advisory Committee of Immunization recommended provinces to give the AstraZeneca vaccine to adults 30 years of age and older.
In the case of these AstraZeneca clinics, there has been change in the NACI recommendations around AstraZeneca. So it's important to be informed, and I think what we're trying to do with a relatively limited supply of AstraZeneca is focus on neighborhoods with our high levels of transmission, in addition to the program that we're doing, that we're involved in with community pharmacy.
While Tuesday's clinics were for those living in specific hotspots in Fraser Health, there were some reports of people from other areas of the Lower Mainland waiting in line and getting the jab.
We hope to immunize a significant number of people in very targeted areas with that. There isn't a huge amount, it should be said, of the AstraZeneca, and that's why we're targeting it at these areas of high transmission right now, and those include, in their majority, areas in the Fraser Health Authority, but as you know, we also have AstraZeneca clinics and have had in Dawson Creek and in the Vancouver Coastal Health Authority as well.
But at the end of the day, many more people are feeling relieved and hopeful for the future after getting their shot.
Look forward to getting that second dose at some point in the next 4 months. That'll be the true relief. But no, it feels great.
In Coquitlam, Miranda Fatour, City News.
I hated having liaison officers in my school. I hated running into police.
Vancouver's school liaison officers will soon stop working in the city's schools following a school board vote. Just ahead, police reaction to the end of a decades-long program and what it means for students.
Playland says it will not reopen this weekend as previously planned. That after organizers received backlash for planning to open on May the 1st. They've now chatted with Dr. Bonnie Henry's office, and Playland is expected to now open after the May long weekend, when current travel restrictions are set to expire. Both Playland and the province's top doctor have discouraged anyone from visiting the amusement park unless they live in the health authority.
A Vancouver doctor pleading with BC employers to stop giving workers a hard time about time off.
They're not going to take advantage. They're not going to pretend that they're sick to go out and go party or go out and have a picnic.
She's getting at least a person a day, she says, with a boss asking for a doctor's note to get a COVID test or because they're ill, and she says it needs to stop.
If they come back negative, that's great. You've avoided an exposure. But if they're positive, then you will have stopped transmission in its tracks by allowing your employee to go home without having to jump through a gazillion hoops.
Many of these BC workers still without access to paid sick leave at work and don't qualify for federal programs.
We didn't get the program we needed at the time we needed it from the federal government, and they've done a lot of great things over the past 14 months, but this is not one of them.
So BC is going back to the drawing board to fix what they say the feds are missing, something Horgan says is much harder at the provincial level.
There's no mechanism to do this. This is not something that's regularly done. As I said, we do not want to hamper industry at this moment, at a critical time in the pandemic, with additional costs. So we're going to find the resources. The resources are not the issue, it's the delivery of the programs.
And that process could take time. It could be until fall, when flu season rolls around again, that it's ready to go. Until then, Dr. Wolak imploring employers, give workers the time and space to do the right thing, to stay home and to get tested if ill.
If people are sick and they cannot afford to take time off work to go get tested and stop the spread because they have to go through the ridiculous hoops of coming to me and getting a doctor's note.
Legislation allowing for paid time off for vaccinations is coming soon in BC, but Wolak's not convinced even that will solve the problem.
Getting time off for people to take vaccination, but again, like I said, it may be that it'll work for a month and then employers will start asking for notes again.
For City News in Victoria, I'm News 1130's Lisa Yusta.
We lay out the orders, we lay out the laws, and it's up to law enforcement to deploy resources to meet those expectations.
As British Columbians are told to stay put and avoid non-essential travel, there's still a lot of confusion from people about how it's being enforced. Just ahead, we'll tell you how many tickets have been handed out so far.
It's the latest confrontation between a frontline worker and a customer during the pandemic.
You guys are absolutely disgusting.
Video shows a woman film herself as she berates an employee at a pet store in Richmond after she was asked to leave because she didn't want to wear a mask earlier this month.
You guys are sickening. You won't serve somebody who's medically exempt. You won't give somebody dog food. Gestapo. You're a disgusting human being. You realize that, you pig?
While not always so extreme, such confrontations appear to have become the norm for many frontline workers as frustrations over restrictions boil over a year into the pandemic.
These folks are, they're a cashier, they're a grocery clerk. They aren't making public health orders, but sometimes they end up wearing some of those decisions.
Patrick Johnson with UFCW 1518, which represents some of BC's frontline workers, says over the last year, workers have unfortunately seen the worst in people, and it's having a toll. Johnson says an overwhelming amount of people signed up for the union's Mental Health at Work course being offered this month.
It does bring forward a lot of just kind of frontline workers' stories, and ultimately, you know, not just the pressure that them and their family deal with them going to work, but the additional pressure as people deal with. I mean, to be polite, call it COVID fatigue. To be in reality, to call it rudeness of some customers.
One grocery store worker in the Tri-Cities who wants to remain anonymous says it feels like she's showing up for shifts, sitting through verbal abuse rather than just working as a cashier.
A lot of customers do get upset with the mask policies. They basically forbid themselves from wearing masks. They like to tell us that what we're doing doesn't actually help anything in the pandemic.
When it comes to this incident, in a statement, Bosley says it's grateful for customers who do respect policies and for staff and franchise partners for enforcing them. The company adds it has shopping options available, including curbside and call ahead to accommodate those who are medically exempt from wearing a mask. For City News in Vancouver, I'm News 1130's Monica Gould.
the discontinuation of the program is a win. That's a step in the right direction.
So this is very disappointing to hear that this happened.
After nearly 50 years of police officers working in Vancouver's schools, the School Liaison Officer program will come to an end this June after the Vancouver School Board voted to stop it on Monday. After the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota last year, the program came into review.
And the harm that I learned about through the review process that Indigenous, Black, and students who have experiences with mental health issues or behavioral issues, even students who identify as LGBTQ2S+, also spoke about the harm that they experience when officers are in school.
Kamika Williams with the Nanando 2 Society says the vote sends a big message.
When I was a youth, I used to get in trouble a lot, and I had interactions with the police many times in my youth. I hated having liaison officers in my school. I hated running into police.
But Vancouver police called it a political decision by the school board and are now thinking about redeploying school liaison officers to different assignments.
It's important to note that if these officers do go back on the road, there will no longer be in the schools to respond to anything should anything happen. So schools would have to call 911 and go about, we would go about responding to calls when we can to get to the schools.
In a statement, VPD Deputy Chief Constable Fiona Wilson says in part, the decision represents a big loss and will have huge safety implications now and in the future. In addition, the decision impacts the direct interaction and mentorship police provide to keep youth safe, like keeping them away from gangs and educating them on staying safe online.
We understand that there's a relationship there with the VPD that's important, but we also understand that the safety and security of all students are important. So we want to forge a new relationship, a new path forward.
Vancouver police might still play a role in schools, as the motion that passed on Monday seeks to have police continue certain safety programs that are independent from school liaison officers. School board trustee Jennifer Reddy says the motion doesn't go far enough.
And so what I would have liked to see is unequivocal, clear decision from the board that police would in fact not be in schools, and that didn't happen. And there was many individuals who didn't feel that that was clearly the case that was communicated with the way the motion was worded.
The school board plans to work with police to develop new emergency protocols, and they also plan to send the VPD a letter of appreciation for running the program for the last 50 years. In Vancouver, Keir Junos, City News.
Vancouver police are issuing a public warning about a local art instructor who's accused of sexually assaulting a 9-year-old student. 50-year-old Xiao Zai Chen operated out of his home near East 64th Avenue and Prince Edward Street, and it's alleged that he assaulted the child while she was attending a class at his house. Police say they're concerned there might be other kids who spend time with him and they might have information. Chen has been charged with 1 count of sexual assault, 1 count of sexual interference, and 1 count of invitation to sexual touching. He now has to follow a number of conditions, including not having contact with anyone under the age of 16 unless in the presence of their parents. A man has been hurt in what could be the latest flare-up in Metro Vancouver's ongoing gang conflict. RCMP responded to calls of gunfire near Coquitlam Centre at around 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. They didn't find anyone who had been shot, but they found a man with minor stab wounds. He's now in hospital. Yesterday's incident took place just a short drive away from Coquitlam Town Centre Park, where a 20-year-old man was killed last week.
It's been less than a week since travel restrictions were announced for BC, with promises of $575 fines for rule breakers heading outside of their permitted health authorities for non-essential reasons. But according to RCMP, not a single ticket has been handed out by their officers, and there's continued confusion of how these rules are being enforced.
We lay out the orders, we lay out the laws, and it's up to law enforcement to deploy resources.
Speaking in Victoria Tuesday, BC Premier John Horgan said implementing travel restrictions is a two-step process. Last week it was announced, and this week enforcement measures will become clear.
We've been working with the RCMP here in British Columbia about where we can strategically locate counterattack type checkpoints to remind British Columbians and to educate them on the importance of staying local. Enforcement tools will be made known later in the week by Minister Farnworth.
Corporal Chris Manceau with the BC RCMP tells City News they will not be doing random checks or stops to conduct travel restriction enforcement related to the new order. Criminal lawyer Kyla Lee believes there are 2 major reasons police don't appear to be keen on handing out travel fines.
It's going to create so much difficulty for them. The obligation to ask people the reason
for their travel and to have to get into those types of debates with individuals. The police are already very tired of doing that. The other reason I think that the RCMP is reluctant to enforce this is the RCMP is really short-staffed right now.
The Public Safety Minister's office told CityNews in a statement they maintain they're looking at implementing periodic targeted roadside checks only, setting up these roadside checks at logical points near the boundaries of the regional zones as a way to discourage recreational travel. Simon Fraser University's Julianne Piper is with the Pandemics and Borders Project, looking at restrictions and their impacts on the spread of COVID-19. She applauds the effort of implementing restrictions, but doesn't feel the way they're being rolled out will make much of a difference on her daily case count.
I guess a bit of a disappointment that these measures were going to be enforced at a much sort of wider geographical area. Ranging from, Hope to Whistler or Pemberton.
The mayor of Pemberton agrees. Mike Richmond says he's worried the restrictions send a message that their village is open for everyone in Metro Vancouver to come and visit. And as far as enforcement, he says he still has no idea what they should expect.
I can't come up with what that level of enforcement should look like. We're on calls with Minister Farnworth and other officials to try to push for something, but I couldn't tell you exactly what that should look like.
But Premier Horgan maintains answers on enforcement are on the way.
The minister responsible said we'll have enforcement mechanisms in place by this week. We will.
In New Westminster, Ashley Burr, City News.
After eyeing Vancouver for a while, Netflix has chosen Toronto as the spot for its previously announced Canadian corporate office. The company went back public in February with plans to set up shop in this country. Toronto is also where Netflix created a production hub 2 years ago. A rep from the company says Toronto made sense for a variety of reasons, including a plethora of talent, partners, and international festivals in the city. Netflix expects 10 to 15 employees will be based in the Big Smoke. The news is always available on the radio with News 1130 or online anytime at citynews1130.com. And your next edition of City News is tonight at 11 o'clock. Thanks for watching and have a great evening.